So with the iPhone 15 announcement being just about a week away, I think now would be the best time to give you guys my honest opinion of the iPhone 14 Pro a year later. Now I gotta be completely transparent with you guys since you guys come to this channel for truthfulness. Well, I've actually gotten rid of my iPhone 14 Pro about 2 months ago, and instead I got the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now why in the world would I upgrade a phone when the next phone is just a few months away? Well, I'll get to that in this video. In this video, I want to focus on my user experience of the iPhone 14 and, well, now the 14 Pro Max, and also talk about the downfall of iOS and how it was once something that was reliable and stable, and now it is something that I just cannot trust reliably day to day, and along with millions of other people. So let's go back in time. It is September of 2022 and Apple announced the iPhone 14 Pro with its new always-on display, the notch, the island, and of course the all-new 48 megapixel camera, along with Buggiest 16. Oh god, sorry, I don't know what's with me today. I meant to say iOS 16, man, it's getting hot in here. As someone that loves to take photos, of course I got the iPhone 14 Pro. I was excited, and I got it. The first thing I realized, and many other people realized as well, is that the battery life on the iPhone 14 Pros seemed oddly bad. Now, of course, that may be the addition of the always-on display showing the wallpaper. See, most phones nowadays have an AMOLED display which only lights up the pixels that need the information to be shown. So if you had a black wallpaper, well, those pixels are completely off. The only pixels that are on are the ones, like I said, that need to show information. So if we take a look at literally any Android phone with its always-on display, well, guess what? It has a black wallpaper, which of course saves battery. With the launch of the iPhone 14 Pro, if you enabled your always-on display, you will constantly always see your wallpaper, which in my opinion, I actually liked it. I still like it to this day. In fact, I do have it enabled. But a lot of people didn't like it because they were confused whether if their phone was on or off, you know what I mean? But of course, it also caused a ton of battery drain because all those pixels were on all the time, even if the screen was refreshing at 1 hertz per second. But still, those pixels were on. It wasn't until iOS 16.1 did Apple finally realize, hey, maybe we should give our users the option to save battery while also enabling the always-on display by, putting a toggle that turns off the wallpaper. Well, better late than never, I guess. But the battery issues did not even stop there because, as we know, iOS 16 is and was riddled with a ton of bugs, and a lot of iPhone 14 Pro Max users were complaining that they were not even getting 6 hours of screen on time, which again is horrible for a Max phone. And now, as we know, a ton of iPhone users are complaining that their battery health has actually gone down to the high 80%. That is insane. I have never, ever heard or used an iPhone that went down to in the high 80% after just 1 year of ownership. That's honestly, that's insane. It seems like iOS 16 was the worst, or at least the buggiest iOS in recent history, which of course made using the iPhone 14 Pro not really a good experience because, yeah, of course, the hardware is great, but the software is actually what you run into. The software is what you use every single day. So yeah, the phone's amazing, but if the software is bad, your experience is bad. Other iOS 16 bugs that I found includes everything that you see on screen right now. I mean, honestly, this should not be happening, at least not from a company that is valued at $3 trillion. That's a lot of zeros. So why did I get the iPhone 14 Pro Max 2 months ago when I just could have waited, 2 months and then got the iPhone 15 Pro? Honestly, battery life. I just could not handle it. My iPhone 14 Pro was getting around 4.5 to 5 hours of screen on time. That's bad. I mean, that's horrible. My iPhone 13 mini running iOS 15 was getting better battery life. That's nuts. Now, I am happy to report that my iPhone 14 Pro Max that I'm currently using is getting around 8 hours of screen on time using the iOS 17 beta. But again, remember, since I got the phone 2 months ago, my battery health is still at 100%. Those of you who are in your high 80s to low 90s, well, you unfortunately are not that lucky enough. And again, that is definitely the cause of iOS 16. So to recap, my iPhone 14 Pro experience was unfortunately bad. Like I said, the hardware was amazing, but the software, essentially the user experience was just bad for me and a lot of other people. So what about the good things? The camera. The camera has been flawless on the iPhone 14 Pro and, well, now the Pro Max. In fact, I've used the iPhone 14 Pro as my main YouTube camera since January of this year, and even right now, I'm using the front-facing video on my iPhone 14 Pro Max to record this video with. And honestly, not a lot of people noticed that my video quality went from using a Sony camera to an iPhone. So I guess that must say something. The fact that anyone with an iPhone can start a YouTube channel and honestly make a living off of it and use something that fits into your pocket is quite impressive. The photos are also something that I love, especially when taken in RAW mode to, of course, access that 48 megapixel camera. But hey, Apple, why can't users access the 48 megapixel camera without going into RAW mode? What if someone just doesn't want a RAW photo, but they just want that increased resolution? Why not have that toggle? It makes no sense. Android phones have it. Android phones have had it for a long time, many years. But aside from that, video has also been incredible because, again, that great stabilization and HDR. It's honestly my favorite thing about the iPhone 14 Pro series, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a thing, if that makes sense. Actually, as I got done talking about how good the HDR is with video, yeah, what I meant to say was HDR is amazing when recording with the rear camera, regardless of the frame rate. If you want HDR to be good using the front-facing camera like I am now, you're going to need to record in 4K 30. For example, right now I am recording in 4K 60. As you guys can tell, the beautiful sky is absolutely white. I actually have to tap on the screen and tap on the sky, and there we go, and now you can see the sky. Why doesn't it do it automatically? Anyway, let me switch over to 4K 30 and you'll see how perfect it is. And in fact, right now it's still blown out. Like, what's happening? Anyway, let me switch over to 4K 30. Right now I am recording in 4K 30, and as you guys can tell, HDR, flawless. So hey, Apple, why? Now, as far as the dynamic island goes, I can see how it's useful for many, but as for me, I just honestly didn't really care for it. I haven't really used it all that much, but mainly because not many of the apps I use use the island. You know, for example, DoorDash. How cool would it be if you saw how far away your driver was to your location by using the dynamic island? Why not have like a little countdown or a little like how many miles they are away, you know? But it doesn't have it. Now, I know that's not to say Apple is at fault. That's something that the developers should have implemented. But again, I just didn't really use it. So my experience with the iPhone 14 Pro series has been a love-hate relationship. I loved the hardware, I loved the camera, did not really like the software. In fact, I hated the software. I couldn't tell you how many times I could not get AirDrop to work, even though it's literally one of those things that should just work. Now, thankfully, since I switched over to the iOS 17 beta, a lot of those issues were fixed, but not all of them. So that kind of gives me hope for the iPhone 15 Pro that's about to come out. I really honestly hope iOS 17 is better, because there's no way it's going to be worse than iOS 16. I just do not see that happening. Of course, I am getting the iPhone 15 Pro Max or the iPhone 15 Ultra. Listen, there's been a lot of leaks about the name. No one really knows. Whatever the biggest iPhone 15 is, I'm getting it. So there's that. If you guys want to see videos on that, definitely subscribe if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed today's video or found it entertaining, useful, helpful, whatever it is, definitely click that like button, as it's completely free to you and it helps me and the channel out a lot, and I always truly appreciate it. This was Mark from Mark's Tech. Adios.